Welcome back to episode 4 of the Ultimate Dirtbike Camper Van build series, where I take my 2022 Transit 350 and I build it out into the Ultimate Camper Van. In episode 3, I constructed the dinette seating, installed an incredible skylight LED system, began engineering the secret Murphy bed, completed my very efficient bike tie-down system, and made huge progress on my kitchen cabinetry. There are still lots of clever details to be revealed for all of this, so be sure to subscribe and of course, watch the rest of this video.
He's camera shy.
Yes.
This day here was absolutely monumental for the build. And by day, I mean it was probably like 3 weeks, but I got started today. And that is installing the batteries, inverter, solar charge controller, all that good stuff to make the juicy electronics work. I've got to give a huge thank you to Battleborn Batteries for sponsoring these items. I did a lot of research, and Battleborn kept coming up as the most trusted, dependable, high-quality components. So ultimately, I reached out to them, and it was really awesome that they were willing to work with me. So they hooked it up with 3 100 amp hour lithium iron phosphate batteries, and then all of these Victron components to accompany them. I am going to make a detailed video explaining the whole electrical system, going over what everything is, what it all does, how you connect it all. We don't have enough time for that in this video because we have to fit so much other stuff. But I will make a little bit of comment on really how huge of a task this seemed like. And don't get me wrong, it is a very big task. But there's so many diagrams available on the internet that use these exact components. The customer support is absolutely incredible. I called them a few times just to make sure I was doing everything right. But really, you're hooking positives to positives, negative to negatives. Yeah, you need some special tools to do it. I was lucky enough to have a friend that was able to loan me like these big crimpers. But if you look at diagrams, you talk to customer support, I swear you can do this on your own. It definitely takes a lot of effort. It's very tedious, but it's not overly complicated. It seems like a lot going on, but you just got to break it down bit by bit. Think about each component, look at the diagrams available, and it's really not that bad. The hardest part, I would say, is wire management, making sure everything's organized and looks good. Please check out my affiliate link for Battleborn Batteries in the description of this video. I will also provide the resources I used for the wiring diagrams and do my best to make a list of all the exact components I used. Note that I'm using 600 watts of solar, and that will mainly affect your solar charge controller. Another thing to consider would be what size inverter you need. I don't have much use for 120 volt power, so I went with the smaller 2000 watt. You'll definitely have to consider some factors when deciding what components specifically you use for your build, but mine may act as a pretty good reference to start from. If you watched my old Moto Van build series, you know I absolutely love these cargo nets, and you bet they were going in this build. So here's one of the things that you don't really get to see because it would take up too much time, but there was a lot of finishing work going into this countertop. There was numerous processes of coating with polyurethane, then sanding, then coating, then sanding to make sure it's a really buttery, smooth finish. All the edges were rounded. So little things like that, just keep in mind throughout this whole build series, you're not seeing every detail. It's a heck of a lot more work than what it appears to be here. I'm kind of just showing, slapping everything together after I've done all the thinking. Ooh, yep, hardcore thinking right there. And yeah, so like making all these little tabs. Well, I didn't show that, but there they are being used to mount this trim piece. So lots of little details. Crazy amount of work goes into doing all this. So since I like to create extra work for myself, I got this diesel heater, and well, it's a gas engine on the van, so that means I need a separate diesel fuel tank. I'm not a fan of the cheap plastic one they send in the kit, so what do? We go buy a $250 aluminum welded racing fuel cell and put about another $1,500 worth of parts and labor on it. The parts weren't actually that expensive materials wise, but there's definitely a lot of labor that went into it, and if you were to buy one of these or have it custom made by a fabricator, you'd be looking at probably a $2,000 to $3,000 fuel tank here. But luckily got all the tools and equipment to do it myself, so turned out pretty sweet. And look at how clean that setup is. Got the fuel pump mounted, fuel filter, vent line. This here is the completed fill neck for the diesel fuel, so you can fill the tank. There's a lot to unpack in this whole setup, but we'll go over some of those details either later in this episode or in the final reveal video. I went pretty bougie with the flooring here. Yes, it's thick. Yes, it's heavy, but I figured with all the temperature change that the van's going to be going through, I don't want something thin and cheap that's going to be really prone to warping. Also, this stuff looks really nice, it feels great, and it's super easy to clean. Now, you might be wondering why I didn't glue down the big piece of vinyl in the back under the bikes, and that's a great question. I kind of wish I did, but it turned out all right. I just figured here on the floor where there's going to be a lot of traffic in and out, I better just glue it down and make it nice and stable. Later on, I did add another trim piece in the corner there. Okay, let me first start by saying the cheap Amazon Chinese diesel heaters are freaking awesome. I've been running mine now, the build's done for about 4 months straight. It's incredible. Be sure to click the Amazon affiliate link in the description of this video and get one for yourself. It really helps me out, and I promise you won't regret having a nice warm van or trailer or whatever you decide to put it in. They've got one huge problem though when you're going through a thick floor like this. That exhaust gets up to around 700 degrees. So that's why I made that aluminum box to protect the insulation in the floor and hope it doesn't catch on fire. But we still had a problem here. With it getting that hot, the fuel line that they provide with it, and I actually ended up using other fuel line, but just about none of it is rated for temperatures 400, 500 degrees, which is what I was measuring the ambient temperature in that cavity to be. So I did a couple things to remedy this. I did a carbon fiber exhaust wrap, which lowered the temperature by about 100 degrees, I believe. And then also I replaced the fuel line, or actually I just sheathed the fuel line in the floor with a high temp silicone fuel line. It's been running for like 4 months straight. Nothing's melted, nothing's caught on fire. I'd say it works pretty well. And look at how clean this looks down here. Pretty impressed by all this. Kind of funny with a $120 diesel heater that you basically have like $2,000 in components for the gas tank and all that. But hey, it's a pretty sweet setup now. This is one of those things that wasn't exactly planned, but ended up just working out perfectly. Nice, easy, straight vent there, and it goes right out into the footwell near the side door, and this is a perfect place to dry your wet moto boots and other gear. Not a chance I'm going to cheap out this late in the game and just use some straps to hold the fridge down from the handles, so I made these custom aluminum plates, and basically it's just going to bolt down to the floor. I powder coated them so it looks really, really nice against the black case of the refrigerator, and ended up just being a really firm, good looking way to hold the fridge down. By the way, this IceCo fridge is absolutely awesome. This is the VL75 Pro D model. It is dual zone, so you can make one side a fridge, one side a freezer, both the fridge, both the freezer, however you want to do it, it'll work. With its 75-liter capacity, I find I get about 1 to 2 weeks worth of food storage in there, which is plenty for my travels and what I need. They do offer both bigger and smaller size options, so you can find one that suits what you need. Click the link in the description of this video and enter code BeRAD at checkout. My dad and I had so many discussions about the best way to do a shower in this van. It's a really hard thing to come up with. You need something that doesn't take up a lot of space, it needs to be comfortable, convenient, and thankfully we achieved all that by simply doing a stainless steel shower tray with basically a backsplash. I'll get into more details later on how it actually works and why it's so great. The only downside was that this thing was really freaking expensive. Cost me around $1,200 just in material. Luckily, we had a friend who had equipment large enough to bend this up, and I can't thank him enough for doing me a favor and basically not charging me for the labor, because I know there was a lot of work and effort put into this, but thank you, Mark. It turned out freaking sweet. And here are some other little details that I did not show the construction of. We've got a manifold here for the water bladder tank. That other thing was a hanger for the tank. My dad had the incredible idea to do a single-piece copper tube for the water line to head to the shower. Holy crap, it looks good. It's one of my favorite features of the van. And you get a little sneak peek of the custom cushions I had made for the dinette, as well as how the Murphy bed works a little. Now, it's not done, but it was in done enough state to actually get to test it out and sleep on it for a night. Words can't even describe how incredible this felt. 3 years of planning, designing, now the building, all that hard work, and finally I can spend a night in my nice cozy space that'll soon be my home, in which I built. The bed has probably been the most wondered about aspect of the whole van build. Well, here you get to see the whole thing in action. We've got that folding table that hangs from the ceiling. Now, some people might say that's tacky, but let me tell you, this thing is so sturdy by doing that. And if I had a leg going down to the floor or an ankle brace, either my knees or my foot would be hitting them all the time. So I kind of did it as a quick and dirty get it done, but I actually really love it now that I've used it for a few months. When the bed is folded down, it rests on these wooden supports on each end. They're kind of notched in to help it from wiggling, and it makes it super stable. It feels really good. Now, the only slight downfall is you do have to remove the backing cushions, but luckily they fit absolutely perfectly right in front of the wardrobe, just next to the bed. For all of the cabinet doors, including the wardrobe door, I use these low-profile aluminum handles with neodymium magnets and some steel washers, and they work really great. You get a nice solid contact and click when it closes, and you don't ever have to worry about latching and unlatching stuff. They just stay closed on their own. I can't forget to mention how much work went in under the kitchen counter. We've got an air compressor with a little 1-gallon air tank, the 30-gallon water tank, fuse box for all the wiring on basically the whole right side of the vehicle, the whole plumbing system with a little tiny well bladder tank so the pump doesn't have to constantly cycle on and off. That has been incredible. And a little tiny temporary 4-gallon gray water tank. And yeah, some trim pieces and these little kick protectors for the corners of the seat boxes, and we have a complete motovan ready to go. And that concludes episode 4, the final episode of the build series. However, there will be more content, like I said, going into detail some of the systems. The next video will be a full van tour. Please let me know what questions you have. If there's anything I didn't cover in here, I want to be sure to go over that in the final tour. There's going to be some obvious things like bike loading and unloading that, yes, I'll go over. But let me know what questions you have. Some things that you think were great ideas, some things you think maybe I could have done better. Whatever the criticism is, let me know. I want to go over it, explain all of my reasoning, and kind of weigh in pros and cons and why I did certain things the way I did. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon on the full tour. And if you've been following me for a while and you're now watching this footage right here, you're probably wondering what the heck's going on. I will fill you in soon. It's pretty exciting news, and there's lots of badass content to come on the riding side of things.